What would you do if you were in Detective James's shoes? Picture this. Detective James, a seasoned veteran in his field, sat at his desk, the dim light of his lamp casting long shadows across his weary face. The day had been a marathon of chasing leads and dead ends, the kind of day that could grind even the toughest detectives down. But James was not just any detective. An unshakable feeling lingered in the air, a sensation that something big was on the horizon. As the clock ticked away, marking the slow passage of time, James was on the verge of calling it a night. Suddenly, the calm of the night was shattered. A young woman, her face pale and eyes wide with fear, burst into his office. "Detective James, you have to help me!" she cried out, a desperate plea hanging in the air. James, instinctively rising from his chair, met her gaze. "What's wrong? Take a deep breath and tell me everything," he urged, his voice steady and reassuring. The woman, gathering her composure, began to unfold a tale that would pique James's interest. She spoke of her brother, Henry, a well-known artist who'd been receiving a series of threatening letters. Her fear for her brother's safety was palpable, and she begged James to look into it. Intrigued by the woman's plea and sensing the gravity of the situation, James agreed to take the case. As he stepped into the unknown, he couldn't shake off the feeling that this was not just another case, it was a puzzle, a mystery that needed to be unraveled, and he was just the detective to do it. As he prepared to delve deep into the world of an artist known for his eccentricity and stunning, often disturbing paintings, James couldn't help but wonder. Who would want to threaten such a man, and why? He was about to find out. What could these cryptic letters mean? We're about to find out. So who exactly is Henry, the artist? Our journey takes us to Henry's fortress of solitude, his studio. A cavernous warehouse transformed into an artistic battlefield where Henry wages war against blank canvases. His creations, a cacophony of beauty and horror, seem to scream for attention from every corner. Henry himself is an enigma. A recluse known for his eccentricity, his intense gaze is like a lighthouse in a storm. The man lives in his own world, a world seen through the lens of his art. But under the surface of this solitary genius, there's a palpable sense of unease, a paranoia that seems as real as the paint on his canvases. And this paranoia isn't without cause. Henry, with trembling hands, reveals a series of letters, each piece of correspondence a chilling sonnet of threats. The letters, devoid of any signature, bear only a symbol, a twisted snake. An icy shiver runs down Detective James's spine as he studies them. The cold menace in the letters is as palpable as the fear in Henry's eyes. A worrying thought begins to take root in James's mind. Could someone truly be after Henry, or is this paranoia a creation of the artist's overactive imagination? Henry's art, after all, is known for its disturbing themes. Could life be imitating art in this case? As James leaves the studio, the image of the twisted snake burns in his mind, an ominous symbol, a dark cloud hanging over Henry's life. The artist's paranoia has now become a part of James's world. And so, as the studio door closes behind him, James finds himself tangled in a web of uncertainty. A case that started as a plea for help now feels like a descent into a rabbit hole of fear and suspicion. He can't shake off the feeling that he's stepping into a much larger, darker plot. Could someone be after Henry, or is it all in his head? As the city sleeps, these questions echo in James's mind, setting the stage for a mystery that is begging to be unraveled. Now, let's dive deeper into the mystery. Who would want to harm Henry? The plot thickens as we bring a new character into the light, Marcus, Henry's art dealer. Marcus is a man of few words but many gestures, a shadowy figure lurking on the fringes of the art world. He has a reputation for being ruthless, for squeezing every last drop of creativity out of his artists. Henry was no exception. Marcus had been pressuring him, pushing him to his creative limits, demanding more work. He was relentless, threatening to ruin Henry if he didn't comply. The fear in Henry's eyes, the paranoia that seemed to have taken hold of him, it all pointed towards Marcus. Could he be the one sending those threatening letters? The one hiding behind the symbol of the twisted snake? Detective James, ever the vigilant sleuth, decided to keep a closer eye on Marcus. He started trailing him, tracking his every move. Late-night meetings in dimly lit alleys, hurried conversations with unknown figures. Marcus was a man with many secrets, but was he a man capable of causing harm to Henry? James's instincts told him that Marcus was not to be trusted, but instincts were not enough. He needed evidence, something solid to link Marcus to the threats. Every lead, every clue, every hunch was a step closer to unraveling the truth. Marcus, the art dealer with a motive, with the means to threaten and intimidate, but was he the culprit, or was he just another piece in this increasingly complex puzzle? Could he be our twisted snake, the source of Henry's fear and paranoia? Every good detective knows that things are rarely as they seem. Is it too easy? Too convenient to pin it all on Marcus? Or is he indeed the villain in this intricate web of deceit and fear? Is Marcus our twisted snake? Or is this another dead end? Only time and Detective James's relentless pursuit of the truth will tell. Let's see where Marcus's trail leads us. Our determined Detective James shadows Marcus through the city's labyrinth down to a dilapidated warehouse on the edge of town. A warehouse that, unbeknownst to the world, houses a secret art gallery. Inside this clandestine gallery, James uncovers a chilling truth. The walls are adorned with Henry's art, but these pieces are unlike any he's seen before. They're warped, distorted, echoing a dark and twisted psyche. Violent, grotesque scenes that make the blood run cold. It becomes clear that Marcus has been profiting from Henry's torment, selling these twisted versions under a false name. Yet, before James can confront Marcus with this newfound truth, an unexpected turn of events unfolds. A sudden attack from behind, a blackout, and when James comes to, he finds himself in a precarious situation. Tied to a chair, he is now a captive in the very place he thought he'd find answers. Face to face with Marcus and a shadowy figure, James is at the mercy of those he'd been tracking. "You should have minded your own business, detective," Marcus sneers, a cruel grin on his face. The tables have turned and James is left to wonder if he's bitten off more than he can chew. But our detective isn't one to be outsmarted. He's walked into a trap, sure, but he's not unarmed. A secret weapon, a recorded conversation that holds Marcus's confession, is still in his possession. His only hope now is that his backup plan will come to fruition in time. Looks like James has walked into a trap, but what will he do now? The answer to that question is not far off, but it promises to shatter the reality as we know it. As we delve deeper into this twisted tale, remember, not everything is as it seems, and sometimes the truth is stranger than fiction. When you're in a corner, that's when you find your way out. Our detective James had always been a master of strategy, and this time was no different. He had been in tight spots before, but this was a different ballgame. He had been knocked unconscious, tied up, and left at the mercy of Marcus and his mysterious accomplice. But James had one card left to play, a secret recording of Marcus's confession, a piece of evidence that could turn the tables. As the recording echoed through the warehouse, the chilling confession of deceit and manipulation filled the air. The sirens were heard in the distance, growing louder with each passing second. The police burst in, overwhelming Marcus and his accomplice. With Marcus behind bars, it seemed like the case was closed. Henry was safe, the threats had ceased, and justice had prevailed. But James, ever the meticulous detective, had a nagging feeling that there was more to this story. Returning to Henry's studio, he discovered a hidden room. The walls were covered in more of Henry's paintings, each one more disturbing than the last. But what caught his eye was a self-portrait. A portrait of Henry, his face twisted into a demonic grin, his eyes radiating a chilling malevolence. It was then that realization dawned on James. Henry was not the victim he had been led to believe. He was the puppet master, the orchestrator of his own torment. The twisted art, the threats, the fear, it was all part of a grand scheme, a ruse to lure unsuspecting souls into his web. Henry was the devil's detective, using his art as bait and his fear as a smokescreen. He was not a victim, but a predator, hiding in plain sight. Indeed, evil can lurk in the most unexpected places. Always remember to look beyond what you see. For beneath the facade of fear and victimhood, there may lie a nefarious web of deceit, waiting to ensnare the unsuspecting.